So I thought, oh yeah, I have long COVID probably. So I slowly developed what seemed to be chronic fatigue syndrome. Yeah, fatigue, tiredness, extreme itching all over my skin. Very difficult. I couldn't sleep because it was itching so much. But back in the day, I was so good at telling lies to myself, pretended it wasn't there, like an inspiration. I was like, I suddenly felt like, what if this is not what it seems to be? At some point, I was able to have more or less spontaneous releases, like, bam, spontaneous release, symptoms gone. And I was like, nah, this is unreal. This is this is amazing. And yeah, then I was from there on, like actually from that moment on, I have never cared about a symptom 1 second again in my life. It was just
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm here today with Leander, and Leander would like to share his story with us. And to kick off, Leander, how are you feeling right now?
yeah. Hello everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Um, yeah, I'm feeling very great today, very energetic, and I'm very happy to be here as well.
Thank you. And it didn't always used to be that way, right?
No, it didn't. There were some months where most of the days this kind of feeling like today was more of a remote memory, like seemed impossible to be true. There were actually days as well that were more like today, even in the most difficult period, but rarely. So yeah, it was surely different.
And you used to have as well chronic fatigue syndrome. So how did that start for you?
Yeah, it started in March 2022 when I finished. I was about to finish high school, and I got COVID. Like I got infected with COVID in the period of the exams. So it was a huge stress mixed with COVID. So after the COVID recovery, I I felt very tired and had like strange symptoms that I didn't understand. So I thought, oh yeah, I have long COVID probably. And yeah, that was when the symptoms started to come up more and more, and they were like very weird. And yeah, so I slowly developed what seemed to be chronic fatigue syndrome. Yeah.
And what kind of symptoms did you have?
In the beginning, it was fatigue, tiredness, and like a for I guess 60 days, around 60 days, I had extreme itching all over my skin, like burning red skin and like you know yeah, it wasn't like actual bubbles, but it was very weird. So very difficult. I couldn't sleep because it was itching so much. And then knee pain started and a bit of elbow pain as well. And the fatigue got worse. And yeah, at a certain point, like 3 or 4 months after the COVID infection, I felt like I had the flu, but every day. That was yeah.
Well, and how did you deal with that? Because suddenly, out of the blue, you were young. I believe you were 19, right? A few years ago. So what do you do then?
Yeah, it was very difficult to accept because as I mentioned, I had just finished high school and wanted to, like, I've always wanted to become a pilot. I'm actually in flight school right now. Thanks to my recovery, it is possible. And so I wanted to get started, and these symptoms kicked in. So it was very, like, I felt doomed. I thought this is not possible. This is just a bad dream. It was very terrible. Um, since I yeah, didn't understand what it was and how I could get rid of it. Um, yeah, so my response was just like some sort of denial, like, no, no, this is not gonna last. This just some random thing right now. And yeah, later on I started accepting it and yeah, started looking for solutions, which I finally found, fortunately.
Before we go there, how did your environment, like your friends, how did they react on this? Because I assume that you were not able to do sports and all these types of things anymore.
Yeah, that is correct. Um, the truth is that I haven't told anyone actually. Like my parents, of course, did know it. And my mother was actually from day one, she suspected that it was some kind of psychological mind-body thing. Of course, I didn't believe her. Whilst my dad, because of the itching, thought that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma or lymphoma. I don't know how you call it. And yeah, he was actually like, now I'm laughing about it, but in that time he was very, very worried about my life. So there was fear on his side. My mother was like more skeptical. My sister was, I think, indifferent, but not because she didn't care. She was like more afraid of it. So not knowing what it was, so she kind of pretended it wasn't there, as I did as well for the first month. Actually, I just pretended, this is yeah. I did what I could and just ignored it. But I didn't tell my friends. They saw the red skin, and yeah, I think I told them it was allergy or something. So yeah, the response was different for everyone.
But you were no longer able to live your life, right? To go to the things that you usually did.
Yeah, that's true. I just did the things that I used to do more rarely. So if it was meeting up with friends, I just did so like once a month because if I did it rarely, I somehow could manage to do it. And told them probably, I don't remember actually, but I think I told them that I was busy with like preparation for flight school exams or something like that. So I just dribbled everything in order to make it fit and to let think people I'm okay, which was, of course, in it a huge coping. But yeah, back in the day, it felt pretty real.
Mm. And how did that make you feel if you were like making a secret out of it?
Um, I, you know, it is very strange to believe that for me as well now. But back in the day, I was so good at telling lies to myself that I mostly believed them. So for me, it was like, I'm not actually like, yeah, I'm tired, but it's okay. So I tell my friends this version, and after some times, I started to believe it myself. Like, yeah, I meet up with them rarely because I have a lot of stuff to do. So that seemed like reasonable for my brain, and that actually worked. So I was actually able to suppress not only the old stuff that caused the symptoms, but also the reaction to those symptoms. I suppressed that as well, which is very astonishing, but it worked. Yeah, so it wasn't actually that difficult to live in that weird. Yeah, I know it's very very strange, right? But it was that's how it was. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had, of course, something similar in the beginning months, like 6, 7 months of my condition. But it also made me feel very lonely. Did you have that?
Yeah, I actually felt lonely even before, but because of like older reasons. But of course that increased because if you like stay home most of the time, it obviously makes you feel more lonely. And the fact that you have this huge secret that you hide from like from everybody and even yourself, that makes everything even worse because yeah, it becomes a huge part of yourself, like all these limitations, and no one knows about it, and yeah, it's isolating. It's everything very isolating. So yeah, loneliness was sure a part of this.
And before you met me, what kind of things did you try to heal yourself?
I tried, as everyone probably, some supplements like vitamins and stuff. Fortunately, I didn't spend a lot of money, but yeah, it was like every time you try something new and you hope it works, and then it doesn't, and then you are like disillusioned again. So this went on for some weeks. Um, I I tried sleeping a lot, like 13 hours straight, and when I did that, I felt a bit better. So that was like another solution for me. I thought, yeah, well, then I will just sleep 13 hours a night for the rest of my life again. Um, uh, and then like an inspiration, I was like, I suddenly felt like, what if this is not what it seems to be? And I started meditating and doing Tai Chi out of the blue. I have never done that in my life. And out of the blue, I felt this like calling, I do Tai Chi now. And that helped. So that was the first kick in the right direction. And probably 1 or 2 months after that, of course, I was doing research about all this kind of stuff. And then I found you. I scanned all your website. I read everything. I listened to your podcasts. And then I was like, man, this isn't like a disease thing. This is CFS. Then, of course, I looked up CFS. And first I had like a shock. Oh my God, CFS is myalgic encephalo whatever. Oh God. But then I dived deeper into your explanations, and it made so much sense that I thought I will give it a try. I will be honest, I was very skeptical and doubtful still, because when there are doctors on YouTube that tell you that CFS is this and that, it's difficult to believe some random guy that says I know how to deal with this. But since I didn't know what to do and somehow felt like irrationally felt drawn to this, even if my rational mind told me that this couldn't be, or that this was like weird and skeptical, I said, okay, let's do it. It's free. It was donation based back then. Let's try. And I had just moved out of my parents' house, like my mother's house, so I was living on my own. And my plan then was to fully dive into your modules, like live there, work a bit just to have like money for paying rent and food, and just like spend my day healing. And in the first month, I did that, and that was very good because when you don't do much, you have a lot of time to think. And when you think, you start understanding things better. And so, like, after the third module of yours, I had lost every doubt and understood, okay, this is what Daniel says is true. And that was when the first time I actually accepted that I have CFS. Then I was like, okay, since there's a solution to this, I can now accept that it is true. And yeah, and then that's when things started to go uphill slowly. Yeah.
And in the third module back then, we were just working on some rhythm and some safety in your daily life. And after that, we dived into the releases and still in the program. And how was it for you when you could realize that you could influence your symptoms so much that you could have a release and feel much better?
Of course, that was like a key moment. I had realized that you can, or like that the symptoms are. I could feel the connection between the symptom and the emotion, even much before the first release, because it slowly developed. I started to feel them in my line of breathing. I started to feel how every time I had symptoms, I had certain emotions like that were predominant in my day. So it slowly built up. And at some point, I was able to have more or less spontaneous releases, like not like module 9 inner child work and stuff, but more like, you listen to like a song that you used to listen to back in the days when this emotion was created. Bam, spontaneous release, symptoms gone. And I was like, nah, this is unreal. This is this is amazing. And yeah, then I was from there on, like actually from that moment on, I have never cared about a symptom 1 second again in my life. It was just I understood how unreal they are and how they are not a problem actually.
Yeah. I mean, this is of course provocative for people saying that they're unreal because they actually are real, but the mind can just switch it on and off. And
Yeah,
that's something that I keep mentioning because for a lot of people this is so far out of there.
sure. I agree, and I will add to what I said that actually they are real, like the experience of them is real, but they aren't a disease. There's nothing wrong with your body. That's what I meant. But you're right. Actually, back in the days, if I would have heard someone say they aren't real, I would have punched him in the face. Sorry for what I've just said, everybody, but yeah, you know what I mean now. And yeah, that's how I meant it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was your first release with the music?
Yeah, I used to do that a lot of times then because I in the beginning I wasn't able to release with like the meditations and stuff. So I did them like the tools, and I added to them some triggers, which could be music or like thinking about a certain memory or like yeah, I triggered myself voluntarily while doing the release work in order to make the release happen. Like it was a way to bypass resistance, I guess. And for some emotions, I still do that because for some emotions, I still have resistance. So I have a lot of um, work to do, but I'm happy to do that. And for other emotions, I learned by the time to let the resistance go and to just release um, without those tricks, let's say. Uh, yeah, and that's now we're talking about very recent developments. Like I had my first full release was like 4 weeks ago or something. So yeah,
How was that?
um, it was. It's hard to say amazing because after it was amazing, but during it, it was actually overwhelming a bit because the emotions are they can be scary, um, and that's something that I really like to talk about because I find it very interesting. Like objectively, I find it um, very like curious how you can know that the emotion is old, but by feeling it, it still is present. So even though you know that you aren't desperate right now, that your life is actually okay, but since you feel desperation, even though you know it's not like in a real desperation of what the circumstances are right now, you still are desperate. And so, since humans don't like to feel desperate and hopeless, it's very difficult. And often my brain tries to trick me out of releasing. So while I'm releasing, like everything is coming out, it becomes more and more and more. And at some point, the brain tries to like say, okay, now you're done. But of course, you just keep going. And afterwards, you think, okay, well, it wasn't that bad actually. Everything is fine. My symptoms are gone also, and I feel happy, and everything is so quiet and chill. Yeah, and the more you do it, the more you drop the resistance and the fear. And yeah, that's what I will keep doing for probably some years, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing. Like many people think that you need to be symptom free forever, and that just takes a while. Um, it So it's more important to work with your symptoms. So you have a symptom and then you work upon a release. There are different tools for that, and see if you can get a full release, and and then be done with it. Feel some desperation or maybe some hopelessness, maybe some shame and unworthiness, and then make it and then be good again. So that's sort of what we promote, instead of this ideal conception of ourselves in the future where we feel amazing. Hey, and it is funny that you combined the tools with some triggers like music to get into a memory to make you feel even worse. Because I did the exact
Yeah,
same thing, and there was a moment where
cool.
I dealt with a lot of shame and unworthiness, and I would have loved if someone would scream to me how stupid and pathetic I am, and so I asked people to do that.
True. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know
Honestly,
exactly what you mean.
yeah, come on, give it to me, give it to me, get it all out. Yeah, I like it. Hey, and what else needed to fall in place for you?
Um, yeah, I slowly start to like to live a more how can you say that? A life that is less crazy. So I just take some days off sometime. Like before, I used to give 100% every day, actually 110% every day, and all time was just I never sat with myself. I used to only work or achieve something or consume something like YouTube, Netflix, or whatever was at hand, which retrospectively, of course, was just a constant flight. And now I integrated more calmness in my life. So thanks to your module where it said to find new hobbies, I discovered golf as a new hobby because you're out in nature and you play golf and it's all chill, and all everything's quiet and you just listen to the birds. So I now like playing golf, for example. So I implemented more relaxing activities in my life because I realized that I don't need to be stressed all the time, since when I'm not, emotions come up, which is okay. So I don't need the stress anymore. And so yeah, that was a progressive change that has happened, fortunately.
Wow. And that's amazing. And how does your life look right now beside playing golf?
Um, as I mentioned, I'm in flight school now, so I'm actually becoming a pilot right now, which I've always dreamed of. Um, the way I'm doing it is very different from what would have been without CFS, because I know that without it, I would have like completely identified with it. I would have been like, yeah, I'm a pilot, I'm so cool, and I have to be the best pilot in flight school, and da da da. Whilst now I'm just enjoying the experience, enjoying seeing the world from above, and enjoying learning things about airplanes, which I find very amazing. So I do it. I also do it in a very paced way. So I don't rush it. I learn, like I study like 2 hours a day, and then that's good. And if I take a year longer, no problem. So I'm doing it. It's almost a hobby, which will maybe lead to a career, rather than being like my new identity and my new super coping, because the idea of becoming a pilot was like when I talked to you 1.5 years ago, I maybe even mentioned that. Becoming a pilot, the idea of it was a super coping for me. Yeah, so besides playing golf, I do that. I do a lot of sports actually. I play tennis, which I've done as a kid as well, and I go on walks. I even go to the gym, which might sound like weird because often gym is coping. And it probably still is a bit
Yeah.
because if we're talking about unworthiness, that is one of the most difficult things to release for me. So I'm now working on unworthiness. Actually, funny, I the first unworthiness release of my life was 2 days ago, and it was like the day after I felt, which is yesterday, I felt like I had super symptoms because it was the first unworthiness release. So maybe I will stop going to the gym one day, but I can do it without symptoms, and I don't do it like from a place of I have to get different because I'm not good as I am right now. But it's just I actually find it's a fun activity, you know. I find it entertaining, and it's also healthy, I guess, to do also like physical activity that is more muscle related. Yeah, and that's how I spend my days. I go out with friends again, so everything is good.
Nice. And yeah, you mentioned 1.5 years ago. We've talked a lot about coping mechanisms back then. So, and you briefly touched this subject. It is doing some things to fight or flight a feeling that you have inside of yourself. So if you go to the gym because you feel unworthy, and then you're sort of fighting the unworthiness by becoming muscled. Would you like to say something more about the difference in how you're living based on these coping mechanisms?
Sure. Yeah, that is it's good that you mentioned that because it's a very important thing, a very important realization that I had and that I wish everyone could have in the world. Um, it's incredible how everyone, like really everyone, is doing 90% of the things they are doing is out of coping. Like it's crazy how I will take myself as an example in order to be more authentic. When I was, let's say, 17, 18, my whole life was a coping. I woke up in the morning and the first thing I did was like look in the mirror and like flex and feel like super cool in order to not feel unworthy. Then I would go to school and like play this character all day with people in school, um, just in order to avoid feeling anything. So they actually like people like good friends of mine um, tell me or told me that I was like a robot, like with no human emotions, and I did that on purpose, you know. And yeah, well, then a lot of like self improvement and achievement copings, like as I said, gym and being extremely good at school, like needing to be the best one in class for every exam and stuff. And yeah, and then in the evening when I was more tired, I couldn't cope in that way anymore. So what did I do? I watched TV or YouTube or something and like ate. I was kind of addicted to Nutella back in the days. So it's well like 24/7 do something to distract yourself from yourself, which works. Sadly, it works very, very well. Like I have been able to not feel anything for years. I actually, this is so funny when I think about it. I was convinced that I like am the only one in my environment which is psychologically stable. I was like, how are these people crying sometimes? Why do they cry? And I just don't, just be happy. And actually, I was more broken than everyone else because I had more trauma than then. Pretty difficult childhood. So yeah, coping can deceive you a lot. And now that I recognize it in myself, I see so many people coping all the time, and it's really a sad thing actually because they run away from themselves and they even cause harm in others by coping. You know, for example, bullies in school, they are just doing that because of their own pain, which they are running away from. So if everyone, this is of course completely utopic, but if everyone stopped coping now, the world would like become a so much better place. Yeah, and everyone would be actually happy and fulfilled, because happiness is, even though I sometimes still have difficulties to believe that, but I know that it is true, happiness is found within yourself and not from the outside. So when you seek happiness from the outside, you are most probably just coping.
Amazing. Beautiful. Wow, you already got the best of those modules, I think. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have absorbed them and just yeah, it all thanks to you. Like I'm very very thankful to you actually, even though we don't pretty much know each other, but you have changed my life in, like, you have made me realize what life is actually about, and how how life works, you know, understanding why people do things, why do I do things, and it was actually just amazing. So thank you, really.
You're welcome. Wow. Uh, very nice. Hey, and is there anything that you would like to share to someone who is standing in the shoes that you had, who's having chronic fatigue syndrome and lots of stress and not knowing what to do? What advice would you give them?
I will try to be concise with this and not too broad. The main thing that you should focus on is um, get rid of the doubt about your symptoms. Try everything to to feel, because it's not a thing that you can understand, it's something you need to feel. Try everything in order to feel the connection between your symptom and your emotion. Even if the symptom doesn't go away and you aren't able to release, it takes time, sure, but you have to try to understand this connection, to feel it, because then the rest will come by itself. So don't focus on the symptoms, on the solution, focus on your emotions. Like, maybe trigger yourself like I did, like Daniel did with different tricks. Whatever it takes. Just um, trust your instinct, and trust people like Daniel, and just get into this place of belief that the problem, quote unquote, is just an emotion, because that's the only real hurdle at the beginning. The rest will come by itself. So that would be my like primer, yeah, you know. That would be my top advice.
Okay. Thank you so much for the interview, Leander. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. Bye, everyone.